All right, it's Monday, October 3rd, and this is a SPY recap, end of the day recap. You can see here on the daily chart, we ended up with a green bar. It kind of started above the halfway point of the previous bar. And in a second, we'll look at the opening price action and how it gave us indication we were heading higher right from the start. What ended up happening is we came all the way up and had a 2-up day, meaning we took out the high the previous day, and we also reached our target, our first target, which once you hit the 2-up on this day, you look back and this is the high 2 days ago, and we reached that area. So now if you continue to look at the daily chart, if we would stay above the halfway point of today's bar going into tomorrow and have another continuation bar to the upside, we will be looking to take out, our next target up here. Now what this next target up here is the weekly high. So it ends up being a situation where, let's say tomorrow we get continuation to the upside on the daily chart and we hit this weekly, we hit our next target. That then chain reaction kind of triggers a 2-up week, which means, let's say it happens on Tuesday, you would think you'd have 3 days then to reach this next target up here on the weekly chart. But what's interesting is when you look at the actual layout of the weekly chart, I drew a rectangle here that represents kind of a gap or some inefficient pricing on the way down. So if we do end up going up and taking out the high, which would normally be a 2-up week, above the starting above the mid or at the midpoint of the prior week and then made a 2-up, I could see this area being some resistance in here and starting, not at least for some choppiness on the way down. It's also very similar to when we had gaps. I was looking back on the weekly chart on the downside over here, and you had the 2-up week, and instead of immediately thinking you're going to head all the way back up here, you look at the chart, you see a big red bar, you see a gap, and we ended up just kind of pausing in that area. Then we kind of chopped around a bit before eventually it was a clear enough breakout where you did reach that target. So, when we're coming at a possible 2-up week in a downtrend, and you want to start really taking out all kinds of prior highs, you got to kind of look at how those highs set up to begin with. And in this case, I see more of a pause area in here, should we even get there. Now, what's interesting is at the moment, we are still just an inside week. So we haven't even reached a 2-up week, which means there can just be choppiness within this prior week, and which means that maybe on the daily chart here, we reached our target temporarily, and we can just be, getting ready to start down again if we go below the midpoint of this bar tomorrow and head lower. So we're just going to have to see what happens. And if, that's the case, let's say we start down and it was just a 1-day little rally, then at that point, we get more in line with, the weekly chart, which looks red to begin with to start this week, just kind of maybe starting up for a day. Then we take out the open of this week, we turn red, and we're looking to take out those weekly lows. And as I've discussed a few times on the monthly chart, we are red here last month, and even though it's the first day of the month, we expect at some point the open of this month to be taken out to turn red and take out the lows of that month, just because you expect a little follow through when you see such a big bar. And again, if you look at where the rectangle forms on the monthly chart, it's right at the midpoint of that month. So if we do get any kind of up action, be very cognizant of the fact it might be, a resistance area. But, it will go day by day at that point to see if we take this out, are we possibly going to be, more likely reaching that target up here or pausing in here and rolling over to the downside. But that's the upside, scenario. The downside scenario could be we don't even get to this weekly high and we kind of pause in here and eventually maybe it's turn around Tuesday, tomorrow get lower, go lower, and then we'll get really biased to the downside. So a lot will depend on how we open. Given the strong green bar, you do expect a little follow through higher. So that'll be, I'm expecting that, but if it doesn't happen, that's another sign that maybe you just reach the target and you're failing. We'll all see how the opening, I think, will really give us an indication of that. But at least for today, getting back to it, you had that opening range, the blue line, and then the first bar, I went over this on a midday kind of recap. The first bar didn't really give us a red bar down to start thinking we might be heading to the lows. If anything, we paused and we started up and there was a buy signal here. And then at that point, we had the first leg up, orderly pullback that I described in the prior video, and a second leg up. And the second leg up was right in line with reaching our target here, because we hadn't had at that point, we were right around here. We hadn't had a 2-up day, and then we had a 2-up day, and then we reached our target up here. So, that's once you saw you were getting an orderly pause and starting back up, you definitely had, you had the intraday target, but you also had the 2-up day, and then you had the 2-up target somewhere up here to reach. And then we kind of just at the end just sold off a little bit. So let's see what happens tomorrow. We'll see what the opening price action is. We'll keep it, all these, these various levels in mind on each time frame. If we head down, then that falls in line with maybe the weekly chart. And the monthly chart heading down. If we head up, we know we have a target up here, and we know that target can trigger something that goes into resistance. So we'll be aware that maybe you'll get a failure up there. If you again zoom this out, we have all this broadening action that we were discussing last week, higher highs and lower lows, and it looks the type of thing where we took out these lower lows down here, moved to the halfway point of that megaphone, which a lot of times does kind of forecast you're going to head to the top and take that out and move into this resistance zone. So we'll see what happens. A lot depends on tomorrow, I think, believe it or not, in terms of are we going to head up there or this whole thing is just a one-day wonder, but to the upside. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. But for today, pretty nice green day, and it was pretty clear, right from the start that you were going to get that.